Now, prepping has a lot of challenges trying to decide, what lasts, what doesn't. I mean, there are ways to seal food to last up to 30 years without too much trouble. But what is it that you can kind of stock up on that will last forever? I mean, you don't have to worry about it, except that you store it in a dark, cool place. And that's one prerequisite for all of these items. Now, while water is not a food, it's definitely in the rule of threes. You can only live 3 days without water. So it's really important to have a supply of water, or at least a way to purify water. Now, water is a basic element, and it's something that in its pure form will never go bad. But keeping this sealed, especially even plastic bottles, the FDA says that water stored in a plastic bottle has an indefinite shelf life. So keep it in a dry, cool place and in a dark place. And that way you'll never have to really worry about it, and you can drink it. Even if you have to run it through a water purifier, water's good to go. So this is on the top of the list. Now, while salt has been demonized a lot of times for, excessive salt, and there's a lot of salt in food, in a survival situation, salt is life-sustaining. We need salt. One thing that you want to be careful of is salt that has iodine in it can definitely spoil quicker. This is no supply of iodine in this Morton 1 pound can. But we also have kosher salt, which is really good. It also does not have iodine. And then we have sea salt. Now, this is just your standard Morton sea salt. There are a ton of different salts, even pink sea salt, that is great. There's a lot of health benefits to using that kind of salt over some of the refined salt. You definitely need a good supply of salt. Again, keeping it dry is really important. You can also preserve meats with salt. It actually removes the moisture. And that's one of the things you don't want to do is get moisture in your salt. So you need to keep this not in these containers necessarily, but in a watertight, airtight container, and this will last indefinitely. In fact, the Roman soldiers were actually paid in salt because salt is such a valuable commodity. Number 3 on the list is honey. Definitely added to sweeten different type of foods and to cook with, but there also offers a lot of health benefits. In fact, we mix this with some cinnamon, and we take it a lot of times when we have colds, and it really helps. But there's a lot of different type honeys. In fact, you can get some, local honey is really the best because the bees are in your area and the pollen's in your area. But it's highly resistant to bacteria because of the way the bees produce this honey. In fact, in Egypt, they found honey that was in some of the pyramids that actually were 5,500 years old, and yet it was still edible. So honey will last for several thousand years at least. And if it does become unsealed and there gets any kind of moisture in it, you can heat it and strain it and bring it right back. Number 4 is sugar. Now, we definitely know a lot of the things that sugar can do. Sugar can also be something bad, but in a grid down situation, having some sweetener would be great, especially in your iced tea, if you're south of the Mason-Dixon line. But one thing important is to keep this in an airtight container that keeps moisture out. One thing that sugar will do is it will a lot of times crystallize and become hard. But you can break that off and it still remains edible. Another very useful item is distilled white vinegar. It's highly acidic, and it actually keeps other foods fresh. But this can also be used not only for cooking, but also for cleaning. And so there's multiple uses with vinegar. So it's really one of those items that has multiple uses. Again, keep this in a dark, cool place to preserve the longevity. And number 6 on the list is pure maple syrup. This is not the imitation syrup. That St. Jemima won't last. But the pure maple syrup is an indefinite food. Of course, outside of your pancakes, in fact, if you're storing pancake mix, it's important to have some syrup with it, I can promise you that. It's resistant to microbial growth, so it keeps the bacteria out. And if mold ever forms on your syrup, you can remove the mold, you can strain it, boil it, and bring it back. Plus, it's just great to have because there's nothing like maple syrup. It's sure a lot better than the imitation. Number 7 is pure vanilla extract. Now, there are imitation vanilla extracts that won't last, but the intensity of the pure vanilla extract is worth the effort. It does contain alcohol, so it makes it very hard for bacteria to grow in it. Of course, it flavors food, and it's used great for cooking. But pure vanilla extract is a forever food. Now, other extracts as well are also forever. So, whatever flavors you want. But to me, the most popular is the pure vanilla. Now, one thing that you don't really think about is cornstarch. You know, that is used for cooking. It does thicken like gravies and things like that. But it also has a lot of other properties. In fact, the Egyptians used this for cosmetics and to make adhesives. But it'll also take care of sunburns. You can make deodorant out of it, adding a little baking soda and coconut oil. It removes stains. I mean, there's a ton of different things. In fact, you can actually loosen knots. If something's really tight, you can sprinkle some on, and this will help to break the knot. So, and then there's a ton of other things that cornstarch can do, and it is a forever food. Now, one of my favorites on the list, and really when I found out that instant coffee is a forever food, I was excited. Not because I like instant coffee, but in a grid down situation, that is one thing that I'm going to sorely miss. So having instant coffee as a surrogate, I can deal with it. And as long as you keep it sealed, and again, in a cool, dark place, this stuff lasts forever. Now, another forever food is dried pasta. Whatever type pasta you use, because it has no moisture in it, as long as you keep it sealed and out of moisture and keep it in a dark place, this stuff lasts forever. And that gives you a lot of hope for your ramen noodles. So, and this has a little flavor pack, which I don't know if it's forever or not, but I know beef bouillon is, and so the flavor pack probably is as well. Then we have soy sauce. Soy sauce is a forever food, but it does depend on your brand. And I don't really know which brands, but I know Kikkoman is a great premium brand, so I thought that that would be the best to pick. Even the best buy date is 2020. And as long as you keep this sealed, it will last forever. Again, keeping this in a cool, dark place, but because the salt in the soy sauce, it really helps to keep this preserved. Now, rice is also considered a forever food, but you need white rice, wild rice, jasmine, different kinds, but you can't use brown rice. Brown rice has some oils in it and it will go rancid. But again, these need to be kept in an airtight, moisture-tight container, and this stuff will last forever. In fact, they found some rice in different places, ancient places, and it was still good. In fact, they even cooked it and it was still edible. So again, just keeping this properly stored is the key. Not in these little bags, but something that, you know, can really seal it up. And then dried beans also follow that same line. One thing about beans is over time, if they have been around for a long time, it'll take longer for them to cook to soften them. But even then, they're still edible. And so again, same thing, cool, dark place. And it's important to store your foods properly. Now, one thing that I don't have, in fact I have it, but they're in number 10 cans, is raw wheat. Raw wheat has been found in Egyptian tombs that were, you know, 4,000 and 5,000 years old. And they were able to take that wheat and plant it, and it actually grew wheat. So wheat is definitely on the list. Now, that's going to take a little more processing and having a wheat grinder, etc., but it is one of your forever foods. And last but not least, any kind of hard liquor, whether it's your white or your brown liquors, these are going to last forever. And one thing, though, that will not last are cream liqueurs, things like that, but your standard straight liquors. The great thing about these, not only is it going to bring a smile to a lot of people that this is on the list, but definitely has some social value to it, and also stress value, you know, if you're under a lot of stress, and just morale booster. But also these are great for bartering items, especially if you buy some of the smaller containers. And also medicinal purposes, there are a lot of things that liquors take care of. Definitely some whiskey with a little bit of that honey. And, you know, we all know about the medicinal purposes for that. So, in fact, I have a whole video on liquor uses in a survival situation. So, guys, if you have any of these items in your preps and you have them properly stored, when you open them up, you just don't have to worry about them. They're going to be good. And again, keep them in that cool, dry, airtight place, free of moisture, and you're good to go. And guys, there is some controversy about some of these items, especially like the beans and the rice lasting for that long, maybe even the pasta. But even if it only lasts 30, 40 years, that's going to give you enough time to get something else going. Be strong.